Hello, welcome back to the Inting podcast. Today we got some special guests. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
You want to
Annie,
go
do you
first,
want to go
Casey?
first?
Oh,
Oh,
okay. Annie will go first. Yeah, hi. My name is Annie, and I am known as a lot of different things. I'm an event planner, a marketing professional, but most people in the Valorant community probably know me as a community moderator for Galorants, which is the largest Valorant community for female and non-binary players, or as an in-game observer, or as a broadcast producer.
hi, I'm Kelsey. People probably online know me as KChoneycrisp or KC. And I'm just known as an observer. I've branched out a little bit besides Valorant now and done like some Apex stuff and mobile games, but mostly Valorant.
Cool. So I guess the first thing I want to ask about, how do you become an observer? What are the steps to get in there?
Because I know, like, for casting, you just do a bunch of small gigs and your name gets branded. But like observer, I feel like it's such an interesting way of getting
Kind
it
of the same. So like the way I started out, I started playing Valorant from the beta at the very get-go. And I got introduced into Galorants, which is the server that Annie is a mod in. It's basically just a community of women and non-binary people who just play Valorant together and other video games as well, but also like tournaments and other stuff. I'm sure lots of people have heard of it.
Yeah.
It's gotten pretty big now. But so I just started out there. They have these things called in-houses, which is, or it used to be at least, weekly games on the weekend. They're sort of just for fun. But they're a place for people to like practice playing, get better at the game, and then also they started having people observe them and also cast them as well. And that's still going on today, and you can still use them for practice. But that was the main place that I learned to start observing, and then Day's Dreams took me under her wing and just helped me learn more about observing. Started getting my name out there to sort of get bigger opportunities. But it's pretty much the same thing as casting, where it's just like a lot of practice wherever you can, even if it's just like scrims. It doesn't have to be anything official, but just getting in the game to like figure out the mechanics of it.
Yeah. Huh. Now, what do you think is like the most difficult part about observing?
Most difficult part, huh? I think I don't know if this is the most difficult, but something that is definitely challenging is finding a balance between um telling the story or getting kills, especially during like very busy rounds. Like 5v5 retakes, for example, are situations where it's sometimes hard as an observer to decide who you want to focus on or where you want to focus your observing on, because that largely influences how the casters are going to tell the story too. I found that for myself, I struggle a lot with trying to find room for getting frags while still telling the story of doing visual storytelling of a match and its players and the teams that are competing in it, because it's not just about getting kills when you're observing an FPS game, especially a tactical shooter like Valorant. It's about catching patterns. Like, are the attackers constantly doing burst executes onto a site? Do you notice any particular Molly lineups that they regularly do? Are the defenders also getting aggro and getting a lot of space that is preventing attackers from coming out, for example? Those are things that we have to showcase, but there are also viewers that are going to bag on you a little bit if you're not on it getting kills also.
Yeah.
Twitch chat's crazy when it comes to that kind of stuff.
They want to see every kill that happens, but not understanding the the rest of the game around it, I guess.
I've noticed when I watch other regions, observers do a different kind of way each region. So when I was watching EMEA, I feel like they were observing in a different kind of way, but NA does it. But like they for some reason EMEA really likes to do like not in the first person but like third person view and like all up top. So I noticed they like to do a lot of that. But like in NA, it's a lot. They do always first person view. So like, is it like what do you think would be the better, like for how do I say it? Like a viewer standpoint.
I always think it just really depends on the style. I mean, I feel like every observer has their different kind of style. And sort of game director too, which is the person switching between the third person view and the first person view.
Mhm.
It's just really however you can best like convey the information or what's happening. And so in certain circumstances, like there have been observers who use like a very 2D type of view where it's just like straight up and down, so you're just like
Yeah.
looking down at the players, which can look really cool when there's like 8 smokes laid out, walls everywhere. It's
Yeah.
really easy to read that way. Other times you want to see something where it's more, you have a bit more distance, where it's a bit more like face on. If there's like 2 shock darts coming in and they're going to get a kill, like that's cooler to see from a non like 2D point of view. So I think it really always just depends on the circumstance.
So okay,
It also
so
depends a lot on the production setup too. I wouldn't say there's a better one between first and third person because sometimes you don't even get a choice. You only get to have one solo observer. It's very difficult as a solo observer to do both first person and third person observing in the same broadcast. Usually when you
Mhm.
see when you see a broadcast that's switching between cinematic third person perspectives and first person, there's at least 2 observers in game capturing all of that action.
so like do you guys have so for example if you guys are doing the observing, do you have someone on your ear saying, oh, switch to like for example if we're doing VCT, like, oh, switch to Vanity's standpoint, he's doing a lurk, like do you have someone on your ear telling you what to do, or are you guys like, all right, this is what I feel like is going to be the best for viewer standpoint?
A little bit of both. You like sometimes your second observer, or even like your game director will call out things that you might not be seeing immediately. So they'll say like, "Hey, there's a lurk happening here. Like, keep your eye out for it." But it's ultimately up to you to what you think is important in that moment to show. So like, if you recognize that lurk's happening, but they're like pretty far and they're not, it's not going to be beneficial to the story right away, then maybe you don't go to it, but it's helpful for your in-game director or your other observer to like call out those sort of things.
So when you guys are saying a story, can you guys hear the casters as well, or is it like do you want the casters to like work around you guys? How do you guys usually manage that?
Sometimes we hear casters, sometimes we don't. Um, there are also sometimes where you have the option to listen to the casters, but they might be 3 seconds behind you, and that's just a
Yeah.
matter of how the production is set up.
Mhm.
I personally like to work with my casters. I think that observing and casting are hand in hand in telling the story of um, any given map, any given round. So, if, for example, with the flank, I hear a caster pointing out that there is a player flanking the team, and I notice that they're coming in pretty closely, there's about to be a point of contact soon, then I will switch to that flank player because it's disorienting for a viewer to hear a caster talk about a flank when you're watching a site execute. So, in that situation, if the caster wants to focus on that part, I will switch to it.
Yeah.
And there are also times where, you know, the casters just want you as the observer to lead the way. It really depends from person to person. And I try to check in with casters prior to working with them, how they want to kind of work things out, as well as a mid broadcast check in
Mhm.
as well.
I think it's really interesting that like I've never heard this before, like Valorant, that like with casting and like observing and stuff, that like telling the story is like such a big part of it. I feel like I've never heard that before in like I don't know, like CS:GO or like other things. I think that's like a really interesting concept. Could you like elaborate more kind of on like what that means?
Do you want me to go quick? All right. It's sort of so like getting every kill can be cool, but a lot of times it can be disorienting if you're just, especially like if they're across the map, you're just going back and forth. And if that's really all the action you see, it's kind of just like a highlight reel. You're not really getting any in-depth info on the teams. You're not seeing their strats play out. You're really just seeing a shooting range of like aim practice, basically.
Yeah.
So when we say telling the story, it often involves like strats or utility that we might notice that we want to pick up on. If a Viper's throwing down, like let's say we're in Icebox, and a Viper's attacker Viper in the spawn, they're throwing a smoke from mid. Maybe you show that off, and maybe that mid smoke becomes really impactful later in the round, where they're either all going to lurk through it and execute on B site, or that's like denying vision or something about that, right? That it might be important. So showing off those types of utilities or strats and saying, oh, well, look, they're executing here with, two are taking this site while two are, three are distracting on another site, but sort of just building the story of that round of sort of what's happening in that round is important rather than just sitting on a person saying, okay, well, they're going to get this kill and we're just going to ignore everything else because we
Yeah.
just want to get the kill.
So when you guys notice someone's like on the team's like, for example, Frisky Saya player, like you notice him like he's on fire, like oh he's hitting his shots, he's dropping like he's about to drop 30. Do you guys put more emphasis on him because he's right now like catching fire and he's catching a lot of like he's gonna be like the you're gonna essentially see a lot of clips from him. So do you guys like try to focus on players that you see, oh he's like cooking up, he's on fire, so we're gonna go to him and we're gonna like focus on that person?
It depends. And I actually had a situation like this observing last week, where a couple times actually there was just one star player in either series that was getting a bunch of kills. I think someone dropped a 30 bomb at one point. And in that situation, what I had chosen to do was to focus on that player when I noticed that them fragging out was important to the story. So, for example, TSM Academy has a player called Harmful, and Harmful just freaking popped off on one of these maps in the Knight's Gauntlet last week. He was getting like, I think he got 3-4Ks with an op. And once I noticed, like, Harmful has an op in his hands, he's about to make contact with somebody, that's when I would switch to them. Because in the end, even though it's just somebody getting kills, it's important to the story. Like this person is popping off so hard, they don't know how to stop him. That's the story.
Yeah.
In other situations, though, where it's like, I think the harder part is when it's a team stomp. When one team is just performing so much better than their opponents that it results in like a 13-2 or something. It's kind of difficult then to choose who you want to focus on. Is the story here, look at this team popping off, oh my god, they're so good? Or is the story, how is this team who is struggling so hard right now going to pick things back up? And what that might mean sometimes is if you're choosing to focus on the losing team, you're going to get a lot of death perspectives, but it's part of the story, right?
Yeah. That's actually really interesting to think about. Do you either make the one team look really good or like hope for a comeback on the other?
Have you guys like ever observed like a comeback where someone comes back from like a 11-3 comeback and you guys are like, okay, like they're getting a few rounds, maybe we just like let's put more like emphasis on the losing team, let's see how it works, and like you guys try to resolve around that? Like how do you guys when you guys notice that happening, how do you guys like change the story to the losing team?
I guess it's sort of just more like spectating their point of view and what's happening or like what they're doing that's making the impact of why they're starting to win these rounds back. So whether it's like, one person on the losing team starting to pop off, I think it was this past weekend where someone got like a 4K to get their team back in the game, and then they kept getting rounds. And so that was sort of like important to notice and be like, okay, well, this star player now on their team starting to do really well. So, maybe I take them a little bit more in the one-on-one engagements that they're taking, because it's a bit more interesting. And we just saw them like pop off to keep them, from losing the map. But I think it's just taking more time and attention to focus on like the strat that they're going to pull out that's, helping them win the round, or, whether it's them in the 1v1 fights. But if you notice them starting to make a comeback, I just try and take the notice to focus on them a bit more.
So do you guys ever like talk to the players as well, like beforehand or afterhand? It's like you ever like see like, hey, we were, or like you ever get their point of view? It's like, oh, so how do I explain it? More of just like, how's the team going? And if they like feel so confident, you're like, okay, maybe we might just put a little bit more emphasis on them. They're really confident going into the tournament at all.
I don't feel cool enough to talk to the players.
Really?
I think the extent of me talking to the players is sometimes when there's a big stall, because like sometimes production takes a while to set up. Sometimes like one random player or their coach, they go into the bathroom or something for like 10 minutes. The extent of me talking to them is asking them what's their favorite color as kind of a way to stall things out, buy some time, but that's it. No. I do not talk to players at all about how they're feeling, how it's going and stuff. Most of my friends in Valorant are either community moderators or working in broadcasting and such. I like Casey, I'm not cool enough. But also I want to point out that observer bias is a really big thing that we need to overcome. So if I'm spectating one of my favorite teams, I can't just decide, it's going to be the whoever show. I still have to give an equal amount of limelight to the other team that's playing against them, especially if they're doing really well. And I don't know that talking to the players themselves is really important, but a lot of observers, if they're especially in the VCT circuit, if you're going to see teams a lot, it is equally as important for an observer to do VOD reviews on teams as it is for casters and analysts to do VOD reviews. Because if you can predict that whoever, like let's say 100 Thieves, pistol rounds, you know exactly what they're going to do. It's important for you as an observer to know that in advance so you can capture it and tell it to the audience as a visual storyteller.
Yeah, we were told that because we had casters on before. We've had like Pyro and Gompers on, and then we've talked to other casters as well, and they talk about how like they do like for like a week in advance or like 2 weeks in advance. Like if they know, okay, I'm gonna cast this team, I want to know all the players. I want to know what their agents are and everything. But so do you guys do the same thing when you guys like, okay, we're going to observe, I don't know, TSM or 100 Thieves. Like, hey, okay, we know what their play style is and we know how they play. So we're going to like VOD review beforehand. So casters tell the story in a verbal way, but you guys actually visually show it. Is that why a lot of you guys go hand in hand?
Yeah, I think it's like when you VOD review, you tend to notice a team's tendencies more. So if you know, like, okay, on Haven, gosh, I don't know who's a Jet player. We'll just go like with Wardell. Like, Wardell likes to, when he gets his ult, he, goes up immediately and tries to like get a kill. He updrafts and tries to get a kill. And that happens so fast at the beginning of a round that if you didn't know that he loves to do that, or it's, part of his tendency, you might miss it. Whether it gets kill or not, it's important info to display. So just noticing like, okay, this team tends to do this on these rounds, or, if they're going on an eco, they always have one person on a hero buy. And so maybe that's the person you want to highlight because they have a Vandal or a Phantom. But just noticing those patterns in teams can be really important.
What are your guys' favorite teams to observe? If you're allowed to say.
Ooh.
I know you guys said something about observers bias, so of course you guys. I mean, if you guys can't say, of course you can, but up to you.
That's so hard.
I don't know if I have a favorite team, actually, because
What about the team that's the toughest to observe? If that can help answer the question. There's a team that's like, damn, these guys play so out of the book, like it's hard to observe them because they're always changing every ad tournament.
pug teams.
I've only observed once, but it was and I think it's because this game had a lot of like technical complications as well as it was late at night. But Run It Down was playing in a night's tournament. I can't remember who it was against. And they're very true to their name. They ran it down mid like every round. And it was rounds were over in like 30 seconds. And that can be kind of hard when it's like chaotic, like 5v5 fights every time. But they're fun to observe. It's not like I dislike observing. I don't think I've ever had a team where I'm like, oh God, not them.
Yeah.
It's just like a different style that you really have to adapt to. But they were an interesting one to like. I had to like be alert and awake and like prepared and be like, okay.
It's like late at night. It's like, damn, I just want to get this over with. But these guys like actually want to get it over with.
Yeah, it's like that for a lot of pug teams and teams that are like trialing members too, because they're still working on their chemistry. They might not have a playbook yet, really. So, you know, if a team isn't completely sure what they're doing, how can I be completely sure of what they're doing, and who I'm going to choose to really focus on? Those are the hard moments for me, is when pug teams are playing.
Because I know you guys talk about like VOD reviewing, but you can't really. It's hard to VOD review a pug team because they don't.
They don't have VODs.
Yeah, they don't have VOD, so you're like, all right, we're just gonna wing it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that brings up another important point. Is another important skill for observers to have is to develop quick decision making. It's like you're not going to know what's going to happen. Like when you're observing pug teams, when teams are trialing members, it's a challenge, and it's a fun challenge. You have to get used to not knowing what. Well, I won't say like not knowing what to expect, but getting into players' heads before they kind of figure out where they want to go. Like, for example, a team defaults a lot. You notice that they might not know what site they want to take in the end, but they might have a subconscious tendency to lean B. Then I'm probably going to focus on those B takes, those B pushes a little more.
So what I noticed in VCT, or like just when I watch like VCT, for a team like Gambit, they play it very slow and very like not boring, but very methodical. So they're like very slow and they'll default almost every round. Like for an observer, is that like kind of hard to do? It's like, all right, so we're just gonna wait here because they're playing default and they're just sitting there for like 30 seconds. So when you guys are in that situation, are you guys just like, what do we do? Do we just sit here for 30 seconds or do we observe the other team?
A little bit of back and forth of sort of just showing like what's happening. Like even if there's the slow rounds where there's no action and like the team's not going to push onto a site until the last like 30 seconds. One, as a point of view observer, first person observer, I kind of like it because then I rely on my third person observer to like have the fun creative shots, because I'm just like staring at, you know, the person that's like staring at a wall waiting for time to like die down. But it's sort of just really showing like, okay, well, they're all sitting mid here, and well, this person's jump peeking, you know, on the defenders. Do they see them? No. Okay, well, then we're going to go back to mid and see what they're figuring out, what they're thinking, and sort of just showing that whole process. And that's where you can really work with your other observer too, if you're lucky enough to have one in that instance, to show like creative angles or just make it more interesting for like the minute of time that you have to kill.
So speaking of like another observer, so when you guys are solo observing, do you feel like it's more of a stress solo observing, or do you feel like it's less stressful because like you don't have to worry about somebody else? Okay, it's like me, all right, I'm gonna do how I want it. It's like I got this. Loaded question, I know.
I mean, like with the second person there, it's a lot easier to catch everything. I mean, you're never going to catch everything, but it's easier to catch more stuff. So sometimes someone will be throwing up a cool arrow that I've never seen before, and like maybe I really want to watch where that's going to go, but I can't because the rest of the team's going to peek someone right away. And so like while showing that arrow is cool, I just didn't have time for it. But if I had a second observer there, they could follow the arrow and you could show it up in a pip. So you can like see where that lands, and then I can also get the kill. So you're still getting all the information. It is sometimes easier because then it's not like if you're the person who's the TD and like just deciding who to switch between, then you don't have to have that decision, and it's really just you the entire time. But it can be a bit more stressful of like you want to try and get all the action but tell a really good story at the same time or get a cool angle, and it's kind of hard to do it with like the preset cams and games, or like you're trying to move but you also want to get the kills, and it can be difficult.
That same thing as you. Verbatim.
She caught everything.
So, when it comes to observing, well, we talked about it beforehand a little bit, but like, how do you want to be an observer? You're like, do you guys like try as like, I want to be an observer? How do you guys like that? Like, when
how do you decide that like this is something you want to pursue?
Exactly.
I feel like it's very niche kind of thing.
Well, I don't like talking. I fumble over my words a lot, so I don't think I would be a very good caster for one thing.
Yeah.
But I kind of just fell into observing. I never really sought it out specifically. So what happened was Casey had mentioned earlier that a lot of female observers in the Galorants community, we get our start in Galorants in-house. Which are very casual and consistent places to practice. Having the streams of our customs is something that's really nice for the community, and a lot of low elo players don't get the opportunity to see themselves on stream and have their gameplay broadcasted. So when we hit a point last summer where we couldn't offer broadcasted in-house games, it was because we didn't have enough production staff. While we had enough casters at the time, there wasn't an observer, sometimes not a producer, to put on the show. So at that time, as a mod for Galorants, I had thought, well, it's part of my obligation, part of my duty to the community to, put these things on. Like there's a gap and I'm free on Sundays. I'm able to fill it. So I reached out to Dazed and learned to observe, and I reached out to another person to learn how to produce so I could put these shows on. And then I ended up really enjoying both, and it's stemmed into so much more than, I just want people in my community to enjoy something, because I enjoyed a lot too.
Same thing with UKC or different way?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I started out like first wanting to be a player in Valorant and not like go pro or anything, but just like play at a higher elo, have fun with it. Then I tried casting, but remembering all the correct names for the agent abilities is hard. And like, that's pretty much where I gave up. I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to have to remember that and calling it the spike every time, and just casting's a lot of pressure and it's very hard. So I was like, okay, well, there's this other thing called observing that they talk about. Let me go ahead and try that and see what it's like. And I've always been pretty good. I've always had like a good mind for games. I just don't have like the aim to do them as well. And I feel like you need a good mind and understanding a lot for observing. And it's, sometimes a lot of predicting and sort of just understanding the game and the fundamentals and the theory behind it. And so that's why I started doing observing. It's why I continue to do observing and branch out into other games, because I find it really interesting. But that's pretty much my main reason.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I don't know how casters, because we've asked casters, they said they just memorize it. I've been playing Sova or like different agents since beta, and I still don't know what their util is called. So
yeah, no idea.
Yeah, it's like when Astra's like, it's like Astra suck, Astra concuss, or like just concuss. That's it. I didn't know there was an actual name behind it, so I was like, I'm not gonna like. I don't know how you guys memorize that, but
you just gotta befriend casters. You just gotta play games with casters. Because I'll play with one of my really good friends is a caster, and I think he was playing KO once, and he was like, I'm going to whatever the knife is called, but I'm gonna 0 point them or something. And I was like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. So that's how I learn. It's because the casters I play with will actually call the abilities what they're supposed to be called, even when we're playing together.
Because speaking of the like playing the game, so I know a lot of casters get a lot of flack because they don't
play the game.
So like how we think of it is, we don't care what your rank is as long as you do play the game a lot or like play a game a good amount. That is good enough
to know what's going on.
You don't enough to go what's going on, because sometimes like we've seen some casters say some things and we're like, you can tell some, like, no flack towards them, but you can tell some casters like we've noticed they don't play the game.
Yeah, like in VCT too. Like it's some of the casters, you're like, what are you talking about?
So so would that come to you guys as well? Are you guys like, should you guys be looked at like, hey, you guys should be playing the game just as much as the casters to understand as well?
I think that playing the game helps you understand some timings, but both casters and observers, we don't have time to play the game. When you're booked for events like let's say last week, for example, I was booked for 4 different events, each broadcast lasting at least 4 hours. I also work and I'm also in school, so I don't have time to play Valorant. But you know what? It doesn't matter because I understand the game. And I think that goes for casters too. You don't have to play the game. You don't have to grind elo. You just need to understand the game fundamentally to be able to perform well and to tell the story alongside your colleagues.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's hard, as Annie was saying, to find time to like actually play. I've noticed since I've taken up more observing, like I don't really play any games anymore, because the last thing I want to do is continue to sit here and stare at my computer after working all day, or after working like an 8-hour event. Like it's kind of just really tiring, and I just don't have the energy to do it. And so I think just having like the knowledge, and I mean, and you can get that from literally just watching games or watching VODs, just a bunch of them, watching VCT, and it's just understanding like how games are being played, the tendencies of like what's going to happen here, what an agent might do here, what the agent's abilities are. And as long as you can understand that stuff and sort of predict it, then I think you're fine. But like playing, like you're never going to play like Sentinels in your ranked games. Your ranked games are never going to be coordinated. It's really, your ranked games are about, okay, this is peeking here. Sometimes they ult and shooting. Like that's really it. Or just knowing like what angle someone can see someone from. But you're never going to be as coordinated. So it's probably more beneficial to watch more than play then.
Yeah. Because I know like that's a hot topic a lot of casters get flacked for. So like, because I saw Yinsu one time, because she said she was gold, but then she got a lot of flack because she's an analyst, also a caster. So like she gets a lot of sometimes she gets flack, and she's like, you don't have to be a high rank as a caster to understand the game, because casters do a lot of VOD reviews anyways. So like you guys are already playing the game, but like just more VOD reviewing. So you guys are essentially, it just feels like you guys are already playing the game by just VOD reviewing as a whole.
Yeah.
So that's why it's just like, I know observers and casters go hand in hand. That's why it's like more important, like for you guys to more understand the game as well, because you guys are saying you guys are telling a story as well, also understanding what's going on, because each player does something different. Like you'll have a team that plays like run it down, who'll actually run it down, or like someone more like a more stable, more like tactical, like Gambit, who will like default and just sit there. Because Twitch chat I love Twitch chat sometimes, but they can get kind of crazy with what they can say. So that's why it's just always like, how would you, it's good to know what your POV is when you guys are doing it and your thought process, because a lot of people don't understand what you guys have to do compared, because they're just watching. You guys actually are behind the scenes. So it's interesting to see that you guys are saying like, oh no, you guys don't play much, but you guys watch a lot. So you guys it feels like you guys are already playing.
Yeah, my knowledge is better than I could ever play, if that makes sense. Like I can't play off the information I know, but I know the information I know.
Yeah. It's also it's like that's why like observing is kind of like your sweet suit because I know you guys said like casting is a lot of pressure, definitely, because sometimes like they have to talk consistently, and especially like if there's technical pause, they're just sitting there talking, so it's kind of funny and awkward. So when there's technical pause, what do you guys do during that time? Because we know what casters do. So what do you guys do in that time? You guys just like wait, or what are your like
Just
jobs?
do flybys, cinematic shots.
Yeah, pretty much. We're the person flying over the entire map, showing off the bears or little stuffed plushies that are around there.
Or, you know, when players are dancing around in a circle around the spike or something.
Yeah.
Summoning circle, I don't know.
Or what team was it? They did the Tactibear ritual.
It was I think Gen G was it.
Gen G.
I think it was Gen G
sprayed
that
the
did it.
Tactibear thing and danced around.
Yeah, because I know there was this one controversy, right? It was like a Nerd Street event, and as there was a tactical pause, not a technical pause, the observer was backing up, and they showed the whole view. So then on Twitter, I think Dabs was like, "Hey, observer, you're not supposed to show the teams where they're going because even there's a delay, it still shows what they're doing." So teams, of course, because it's online, teams could stream snipe. So are you guys like during a technical pause? What are you guys supposed to like do to like not give the other team an advantage? If you guys understand what I'm saying.
I think oh, sorry. Go ahead, Annie.
I think that's more on the production side. And I will say, like, as somebody who has also done a fair amount of producing, it can be difficult to figure out when you should be switching the casters back to desk. Perhaps you can't switch the casters back to desk for some reason. The thing that's really great about a tactical pause is that most of the time people are using the in-game function and it just pauses it. No one can move. You're just hanging out and chilling. But for the technical pauses where you have to use the actual timer, like you actually stop the timer completely. If it's longer, if you think it's going to be longer than however long your delay is, you should probably go back to the caster's desk. And I've made that mistake of not going to the caster's desk before and then getting yelled at it later. But like, you shouldn't be watching the stream if you're a player or a coach anyways. That's in game, is my opinion. But if they were, one way to deter that is to switch back to the caster's desk. On the other hand, as the observer, you're just flying around having a good time. It's not on you if somebody is stream sniping.
Yeah.
Your job is to show the viewers a good time, not to prevent players from stream sniping.
Yeah. I feel like that's a lot of issues when it comes to like online events because you can't really prevent that.
Yeah, I think, but that's something like people shouldn't have to think about. Like, yeah, if you're playing the game or you're the coach or whatever, why are you watching the stream? I
feel like as like online productions have continued over these past 2 years where they become more common, like productions have become more equipped to handle it. So I know like certain productions, I'll hide my map if we have like a long technical timeout, or I'll try and find places on the map where like it's not showing any of the players, and then like Annie said, if it takes too long, like if we're over like 3 minutes or something, then we switch back to the casters so no one can see. But it's sort of like those little tactics that I feel like vary between productions that sort of like deter that.
Yeah, I think there was this. I don't know if you guys remember. There was this one technical pause. It was like last year in EMEA, where like there was 2 Turkish team qualifying for Masters 3, I believe, and like it was like for 30 minutes there was a technical pause, and so when that happened, like it was 30 minutes, and then they just cut production because they're like, oh, there's no internet. So I was wondering, I'm like, so what are the casters and observers gonna talk about or just do for the next 30 minutes when there's a tactical? So all they did was just show the countdown of the timing, and they kept resetting it. So I don't know if you guys remember that in EMEA. It was a G2 and Oxygen Esports, and then it was a SMB and then another esport team. They were qualifying for Masters 3, and they were for like 30 minutes. They were just sitting there. So that's why it's like interesting to know what you guys are doing behind the scene, because sometimes it's not even your fault. It's just players' internet just die out.
Yes, online tournaments.
That's why it's like sucks. I hate online tournaments so much, is because like shit like this happens, and that's why like when it comes to like I don't know, have you guys ever done any LAN events, like observing any LAN events?
I've observed LAN events remotely. So
yeah.
like
So
Okay.
I'm remote,
How's
but the events online. or,
how
like,
is the
where it's-
experience different? Like how's the experience compared to online to LAN events when it comes to observing?
I'm not the one doing ready checks and stuff like that. So like normally in the lobby, you check to make sure both teams are ready, and you check production's ready, and then you send the game in, or you send the lobby into the game. On LAN, it's more so everyone telling me that they're ready, and then I just press the ready button. It's not difficult to gather players into the lobby, which can sometimes be really annoying online, because sometimes people don't like to add you because I don't know, friends lists and whatnot. But that's pretty much it. I mean, like the game's still the exact same game. People have
Yeah.
lower ping. No one's complaining about servers. That's really nice, because that can cause some delays sometimes of arguing Texas or Illinois. That's like
Yeah, I
a
think
big
Packet
thing.
loss.
Yeah.
Wait, that was an
Packet
issue
loss
because,
on Texas.
because this past challengers, it was like TSM and T1. They were arguing on, all right, I want to play in Illinois or Texas. So like when that happening, are you guys in charge of what servers are playing, or are you guys be like, now how do you guys decide that when it comes to servers?
We try and get
Um,
tournament admins
yeah.
in to be the final voice, because we're not running, the tournament. We're literally just observing. That's our job. And it's not our job to tell people, well, you have to play on this because, whatever. That's not our call. We
Yeah.
can show in the lobby to the tournament admin what their pings are on each server, and they can calculate the difference and give a final ruling. But it's not our job to be the bearers of that news.
Yeah.
So if there's ever like a fight about it, we contact an admin and they can jump in the lobby and give their ruling.
Yeah.
Will they just say like, I'm not gonna play until we discuss this? Like, have you guys ever had that? It's like, oh, don't start. I want to play on, like, for example, Illinois, and the other team is like, no, we want to play on Texas, and they just like talk to you guys, and you're like, okay, we're not gonna handle it. Just get somebody else to do it. Essentially.
I've had times where like they won't agree, and then shout out to Jasper from Knights.
I was
He
gonna say Jasper
instills
too.
the fear of God in them, and whenever Jasper comes into a lobby, the entire lobby just shuts up, and they
You don't
listen
even
his
need
final
to.
word.
He doesn't even need to come in. Sometimes if you just like say Jasper says this, which I won't say Jasper said something without his permission. They'll just do whatever. Like Casey mentioned before, sometimes wrangling players is hard. If I have one missing person and I said Jasper says get this person in the next 2 minutes, oftentimes that missing person instantly joins.
Is what does Jasper
amazing.
go? What does Jasper do? Is he for what organization does he like work for when it comes to admins?
He works for Knights,
Yeah.
Knights?
Pittsburgh Knights. Yeah.
Why
Oh,
is it, what makes him so scary?
yeah. Wait, I'm kind of curious. Why are all the players scared of him?
He's
I'm
just-
kind of curious.
He
He just
holds
has the power.
Yeah. If you are, being disrespectful for production, or you're taking too long, or you're arguing, he's got the power to like DQ you or penalize you, or whatever it might be. But
Mm-hmm.
you pretty much act right when he's around.
Essentially, don't take
Yeah.
bullshit from him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So ping disputes. Yeah. If there's which there can oftentimes be a ping dispute. Tournament admin is the first person that we go to.
Okay. But did you guys try to like talk it out with the players like on your own, or is it just like, nope, admins, I'm just the observer, I'm just the messenger?
I mean, if it's a situation like they're refusing to start the game, it's like straight to the admin we go.
Yeah.
As my role as an observer is not to decide what server you're going to be on, and I think this is also kind of I don't know the word for it, but to kind of protect myself and like the integrity of the game, I am not the person that should be making that decision. The players are the ones that are in the game. Ping is going to affect them. So the players, the coaches, tournament admins, they're all the ones that are talking about servers and things like that. I just watch the game. I just push buttons, bro. Don't make me make a decision. It's not my job.
Nah, I understand. Because I know like for so many tournaments, there's always been drama, 100 Thieves with like They had drama with TSM and T1. They had drama with ping issue. So it's always like, it was always interesting to know like what actually goes on inside the tournament and like what they're saying. And that's why, is that why a lot of technical pauses before the game? And that's why I feel like, for example, a tournament starts at 4, but why is it just starting at 4:30? Is it because they're arguing or like discussing ping issue and because players just not joining?
I would say it depends, but sometimes like from the lobby perspective, if the casters are on live and like are on desk and talking and we haven't started yet, it's either because everyone's not in the lobby, both teams are not ready, so like someone might be going to the bathroom or something, or they're just not ready to hop into the game yet, or there might be some argument about something, or we're doing like map bans and stuff still. It sort of just depends.
Okay.
Map bans can take a while. I'd say more often than not, when there's a delay, it probably has to do with map bans. Especially if you're in the middle of a day, having a team come out of a match and then having to do map bans again, making sure everybody's got water, a snack, went to the bathroom or whatever. It's a lot. And that's why, it takes a while to get into the next game sometime.
Oh,
sometimes everyone just needs a break too. Like a 5-minute break for casters, let them breathe and not talk for 5 minutes, get a little rest.
Is it for you guys as well? Like when you guys are on break, it's like, all right, I'm just gonna go for a walk for like 5 minutes because I've been staring at my screen intensely for like 2 hours.
You get up, do a little stretch during breaks.
Yeah.
Oh,
get food.
By the way, do you guys eat while observing? Is this like a common thing? Do you guys like eat while observing as well, or is that like not allowed?
I was just telling somebody it sometimes feels like observers have 4 arms because we're not just in game, we're also communicating with our producer. And sometimes, depending on the setup, we can't always speak to our producer verbally. Like if a production is taking Discord audio, I can't scream at somebody like, hey, team, whoever is taking a technical pause. I can't communicate that. So that's something I'd have to alt tab of the game into to type out or type on my phone and then go back into pushing buttons in game. So yes, I do eat while I observe. I also will scroll on Twitter sometimes between maps or during the half. I'll just be like, okay, there's this cool flyby. I wonder what's happening on Twitter right now. And be like doing the flyby on my controller while scrolling on my phone with my other hand.
I love buy rounds in the beginning of buy rounds because that's the easiest time to like grab a bite of your food because that's like 30 seconds where like really nothing's happening.
Yeah.
When you're working 9 to 10 hour broadcasts, you don't have a choice but to eat food during a game.
Do you guys make it beforehand, or do you guys DoorDash or Uber Eats for about middle of the map, then like while the map, and then you guys go grab your food real quick and come back?
Well, it depends on how I'm feeling. So sometimes I have, like a snack prepared, or I'll eat before the broadcast and then just have a snack during the broadcast, and that's a lot easier to just like grab something from my fridge. Recently I've been doing DoorDash, and so I'll try and time it where I'm like, okay, I know this takes an hour. We're about to start our game. Let me order it now. And then, sometimes it has happened where I have to run to my door really quick and grab the food in the middle of the or in the middle of the broadcast. But yeah, I've mainly been doing DoorDash these days.
That's
sometimes I just don't eat.
Oh, no,
that's rough.
That is rough. So
I get yelled at it. I get yelled for not eating a lot. I'll just like load up on coffee and chocolates or something. So I've been trying not to tell too many people when I'm not eating, but people have started asking me, have you eaten today? And then making me show them the food in my hands. So shout out to those homies for making sure I'm eating. Oftentimes for me, it's DoorDash.
Alrighty.
Nice.
So we know that you guys are at least like fed when you guys are observing. That's all that matters.
For the most part.
I think wrapping it up here. Do you have a question?
Shall we do the tradition?
So we have a tradition. Every guest we have to ask. We ask every guest this. What is your favorite boba order?
Classic oolong milk tea, regular ice. 30% sweet, and I don't like tapioca, so I usually get herb jelly.
You don't like tapioca?
It starches make my stomach hurt if I have too much of it. So
That's there.
That's fair.
Casey, what about you?
I don't think I've ever been to a boba place, so I actually don't really know. I think I went to one in like San Francisco. That's as much as I can remember. So I just get any drinks with boba here from like Thai restaurants. So like, I don't know, Thai iced tea with boba. Does that count?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's boba. It's
Why not?
awesome. Because we're like over here in Jersey, we have
We're
like
boba fiends.
we have like boba almost every other block. There's like boba 5 minutes away. There's like a boba place just in like the mall. So we're boba fiends all the time. I think we always get it right before recording. Usually we always get boba. So that's why it's interesting to always ask you guys. The only people that I've ever like we've had TSM Wheels on and we've had George Geddes, and they both don't like boba at all, or they don't drink it.
Well, Wheel said he's too old for boba.
Yeah, he's 30, but he keeps saying he's old, which
He's
is
too
not.
old for boba.
He's not old, but
too old
George-
for boba.
Yeah, I don't know what that's supposed to mean.
yeah, it's we roast him about it.
Then George just he hasn't had it, but I know I bring it up like every other episode, but the crew manager, we asked him what boba was. No, that was the debate. No, he didn't like boba.
Yeah, he just didn't like boba,
He didn't
period.
like it at
And
all.
Gompers, she just only drinks water. We're like,
Yeah, Gompers
only
we
drinks
asked her,
water.
She was like, I only drink water.
She does not
That's
drink
not
anything.
true. That's actually a
feel like
lie.
that's a
She
lie.
loves apple juice. I know that for a fact.
didn't
She
say
loves
that.
apple
She
juice.
didn't say that. When we asked her, it was like, okay, so when you go to a restaurant, what do you drink? She's like, I might get a drink, but for the most part, I get water only, or I only get water. And I'm like, so you don't get lemonade, nothing? She's like, no, mostly just water. And I'm like,
We should like tweet at her. And
well,
be
yeah,
like,
we're
"You
gonna
li-
we're
you
gonna
lied
tweet
to
her about
us.
this. Like, you
like
lied to
apple
us.
juice?"
we got two witnesses saying you lied to us, so we're tweet at her. But alrighty, if you guys want to plug in anything, of course, Twitter, anything, you guys are more than welcome to plug in.
My Twitter's
you
just
can-
oh,
You
go ahead, Annie.
first. Your Twitter is
My Twitter is KChoneycrisp. That's pretty much it. Same thing as my Twitch, but I don't really stream.
Awesome.
yeah. My stuff is found twitter.com/Anniepoo_. Underscore is very important. Regular
Very important.
Anniepoo takes you somewhere else. My Twitch, on the other hand, is just Anniepoo, no underscore, because I was able to secure that handle there.
That's good. That's good.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Well,
Awesome.
I'll see you guys later. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.
Bye.